I remember being on one of the MSNBC shows, and there was yet another. North Korea had taken over the show, and one of the things I said off camera to a Republican strategist, I said, we have these two irrational actors who were, tweeting back and forth at each other and hurling insults. And I was corrected. The Republican operative said, no. Don't think Kim Jong Un is irrational. He's very rational, because to him, protecting the regime is the most rational thing. That is what he's all about. And I see you nodding. That's the way we need to look at this.
The way I've described it, and other experts who I respect quite a bit have talked about this, is he is very rational within his own context, Kim Jong Un, that is, which is his nuclear capability is his insurance, right, on the continued existence of the regime. He is not, I think the best experts and intelligence analysts, if they were sitting here in this studio, would be telling you he is not suicidal. Right? He is quite rational in trying to maintain the continued existence of the regime. That means continuing to have this nuclear capability as his hedge against anybody trying to overthrow that regime and to stop his leadership. That's why this kind of war of words, I think, can be potentially dangerous, to the extent that being Kim Jong Un, miscalculates about what we are or we are willing to do, and at what point he may perceive us as being taking a regime change approach and being willing to do that, and does that then force him to act in a way to protect the regime? So that escalatory cycle is something that we've got to be very concerned about.
You said a moment ago, that it's an odd thing for the United States to be on the outside looking in when it comes to what's happening with North Korea. And that leads to the larger question of the United States' role in the world now, after more than 70 years of being the leader of the liberal democratic order, democratic with a small d order, that it seems like the United States is retreating from, it seems like, every leadership position that it jealously guarded. How do you think our allies are reacting to a situation where, for the first time, they probably don't think they can depend on the United States?
I suspect they're concerned, confused. Richard Haass has written about this, I think, quite well, and talking about whether the U.S. is basically abdicating its decades-old role of being a leader of the liberal international order. I think you can look around the world and see evidence of this confusion and concern on the part of our allies. Angela Merkel saying very publicly last summer that Europe and the kind of post-World War II order that was created, and European leaders are going to have to not think that they can automatically rely on the United States, and they're going to have to, I'm paraphrasing now, kind of fend for themselves, right? You can kind of look across the world. You see us isolated in the UN as a result of this move on the designation of Jerusalem as a capital, going away from years and years of diplomacy and position of the United States that the status of Jerusalem should be a matter for the parties in the final talks. Now, whatever you think, and it's a completely legitimate view to take the position that the capital or the embassy should be moved at some point, that's been in platforms across administrations, right? Republican and Democrat, but to not seemingly have any strategy for it, right, puts us in a position where we are isolated in a UN vote where some 160 plus countries vote against the United States or abstain, right? It's never happened before. So you see us pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord, right? Again, where every country in the world, to include Syria,
Right.
is part of this arrangement, and we are on the outside, pulling out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which contrary to what is our kind of stated goal and stated interest, which is to improve our trade capabilities and leverage in the region. We find China now moving into that vacuum and having trade arrangements with people in the region, countries in the region, that again have us on the outside looking in. That, I think, is a real change from decades and decades of U.S. leadership.